Hi everyone, my name is Margarita and we're going to start with the conference number 29 that is titled The Law of Pendulum. The objective of this conference, as the image shows, is to break a little bit the wall of our mind that is full of bricks that are the concepts, and see a little bit past it. We are full of different intellectual structures of our mind, and those structures cannot allow us to see what's the truth. So the objective of this conference is to see the big panorama and reflect a little bit on the different concepts and intellectual ideas that don't allow us to see a little bit past all the imaginary and illusory forms of our mind. So let's talk a little bit about the pendulum. It's a lot interesting to have a pendulum clock at home, because you can reflect on the movement of one object from one point to another point in space. One can reflect on that, and one can say that a human existence is like that. It's like the movement of the pendulum. You displace in time from the moment of your birth to the moment of death, and all the instants that you live in your human existence are like the swing of the pendulum from one side to another, being in one side the moment of birth, and in the other side the moment of death. So the law of pendulum in ancient times also had the purpose of understanding the historical processes of the splendor and decadence of different civilizations. In this moment, we are bottled up in the dogma of evolution, and we think everything is going to be better in the future with all our modern tools, all our machines, all our technology, and we think everything's going to evolve, and we don't see that at one moment we have to do like the pendulum. This splendor is going to get into a decadence, and we're going to pass to the moment that this supposed success and splendor of technology is going to lead us to a moment in which we are going to see the decadence of this age. So everything rises and falls, everything increases and decreases, comes and goes according to the law of the pendulum. Everything is not stable, it's changing in every moment, it's oscillating, swaying with time, and that's interesting to see, because at one end and in the other end of the pendulum we are going to be the different parts of our mind and its illusory perspectives can only see two sides of the coin. We can only see reality in black and white. We cannot appreciate the different colors of a human existence, because our mind is bottled up in our ego. So at one end of the pendulum we have joy, in other end of the pendulum we have pain, and it swings according to the different desires, longings, emotions with the law of the pendulum. For example, in this image we see that it has a negative side and a positive side. We see that in one part we have passivity, in the other activity, in other suffering and other pleasure, in other decadence, in the other part the splendor. In one side materialism, and in the other side spiritualism. Our purpose with this conference is get to see that our mind is divided in two sides. It cannot perceive the whole picture because we are always looking things in a like bipolar way. We need to achieve the sacred individuality that is achieving the 100% of conscious. In that way, we are going to be able to escape from this bipolar vision and get to see the whole panorama of what's reality and achieving what's truth. But that can only get when we comprehend, we get to the understanding of or the conciliation between those poles. We get to walk through the middle path and avoid being in one pole of the pendulum, because if we are here, if we are materialist, we're not going to get to see the truth in this side of the pendulum, because we're going to think this side is the truth and the other it's false. So let's talk a little bit about the law of pendulum in different historical processes. For example, it said that many civilizations have risen and fallen by the law of pendulum. For example, Egypt rose with the splendor of the pharaohs. Then it came to a decadence, and Jerusalem, with its prophets, rose also. It came the moment that Jerusalem also fell and the Roman Empire appeared. So the law of pendulum rises and sinks empires and powerful civilization. Not everything is eternal, as the dogma of evolution says, that we are just keep going into technology and modern age is going to evolve into a non-stoppable progress is really false. So everything has a splendor, but has also a decadence, and that's the law of time and the law of pendulum. So we're gonna observe also the law of pendulum with spiritualism and atheism. You can place pseudo-esoteric schools and pseudo-occultist schools, religion, sects in the right side of the pendulum, for example, and in the left side you can place materialistic schools, intellectual school, skeptical, Marxist, and scientific schools. And you're gonna see that both of them are in one side of the pendulum. The materialistic, atheist, cold, intellectual, scientific mind, due to an unusual incident, a metaphysical or transcendental event, can experience an indescribable terror and say, oh my God, I'm gonna shift to the opposite side of the pendulum, and he might become a religious reactionary. So it also happens in the opposite way. Faced with the deception that a religious institution or a religious leader has behaved in a way that is not moral, that is not right, that is not that is really questionable, the religious fanatic can turn into skepticism, atheism, and hate everything that he praised once. So one can see that is a sham. It doesn't exist the absolute materialistic, as well as it doesn't exist a total and absolute religious believer. So everyone can shift in one moment according to the law of pendulum. One can see that materialism and spiritualism are full of theories, prejudices, preconceptions that are processed in the mind according to the law of pendulum. They are fashionable, according to the custom of time. For example, in medieval times, we praise the God religion. Everybody was praising the God religion. And in modern times, everyone's praising the God science. So it's just a question of fashion and time that everyone's going to shift from one side of the pendulum to the other side of the pendulum according to the custom and habits or the perspective of the historical time. But that doesn't mean that in this side of the pendulum is the truth, or in that side of the pendulum the truth is. Because the mind knows nothing about the spirit, neither about matter, and a concept is just a concept. But it's not reality. One can forge many concepts about reality, but it doesn't mean that the concept is reality. So one can argue a lot about what is the truth and think that the truth is in the God science or in the God religion. And one can argue about many concepts like what's matter, what's the soul, what's the spirit, and one can have many ideas, many concepts. For example, scientists discuss with a lot of self-sufficiency about what's matter. They think they can label things, and matter is everything. Everything that you can see with your five senses is matter. Well, one can label that matter, but that doesn't mean that we know what it is. And the same as we said, as we say with soul, we think that our soul is like something that a place inside us where our virtues are, but we cannot totally get to describe that, and neither our spirit, that it's something beyond, and we confuse what soul is with our spirit. So the concepts are not reality. The mind knows illusory forms but knows nothing about reality or the truth. When is going to come the truth to us? When we are going to understand those concepts, when we eliminate our illusory forms, when we get to perceive what's around us, not only with our five senses that are illusory and pass with time, but with something that's eternal and that's beyond the third dimension. We know that our physical body, with the senses of smell, touch, hearing, vision, is from the third dimension of solid shapes and organisms. But there are different dimensions of nature that we don't know. For example, when we go to the world of the dreams, we can enter to the fifth dimension, that is the molecular world, that is the astral dimension. And we can go into a conscious astral, that is when we are conscious in a dream, or we can go into a dream unconsciously. In that moment, we could ask the wisdom of our being about those concepts, and our being is going to answer us with the truth, because it's something we experience directly, and it is not on the concepts that we repeat like parrots. Because this scientist said that, so I'm gonna repeat that. Einstein said that, so he knows it all because he's famous. He's a famous scientist and he knows it all. Or this religious guide told us this, so that is the truth because I'm going to repeat as a parrot what he said. No, we could ask the wisdom of our being, of our inner conscience, what the truth is. We could achieve that. If only we are willing to experience the truth directly instead of thinking that everything that's external is the reality, and all the concepts and ideas of intellect that many people have forged, and we repeat them as we were parrots. So the spirit is the spirit, our being, and only itself can know. Reality and truth are things that we need to experience directly, and we need to live it. We need to see them with the superior centers of our human machine. We have superior senses than our five senses. We have a lot of psychic abilities that we don't know, because we have the 97% of conscience trapped in our ego. But if we liberated this conscience, these virtues, faculties, powers, and forces of our being, we liberate them from our ego, we could perceive things in different dimensions, in the superior dimensions, the astral dimension, the mental dimension, the vital dimensions, that are the different dimensions, superior dimensions of nature, not only the third dimension of our physical body that we can perceive, touch, hear, smell. No, there are realities that we don't know, that are more profound than our superficial body. So we know that theories go out of fashion. We know that what we can perceive with our five senses is really the top of the iceberg. We need to see profoundly, be able to see the rest of it. For example, the mind knows only illusory forms of nature, but knows nothing about the truth contained in such forms. If we could perceive the vital energy of what we call the soul of plants, the soul of plants is something that we call the elementals. If we could talk with the elementals of the soul of plants, we could know a lot about the truth, about these living forms that are in nature. But if we look at it only with our five senses, we could say, oh, the plant is a living thing, and that's it. But this living thing doesn't interact, doesn't talk, doesn't have a soul, because it's not human. Our intellect and scientific intellect could think like that. But if only we were willing to experience the inner world, our microcosmos, as the Greeks said, man, know yourself and you will know the universe and its gods. Well, also you can know the different parts of nature and talk to them, like the elementals of the plants that are the soul of the plants. You could talk to the elementals if you wanted to. There are also the soul of minerals that are the pygmies. There are also the soul of animals that are the anima. So we could talk to the elements and the different beings of nature if we wanted to. But if we keep stuck with the perspective that the only living forms that can communicate and express a little bit of emotion or get to us are the human beings, where we're gonna keep with that perspective and we're not gonna see in different dimensions of nature. So let's see. Theories go out of fashion over time and over the years, and What you learned in school afterwards is useless. The conclusion is that nobody knows anything. We think we know a lot. We think if we repeat like parrots the concepts that we heard in school, in university, or the things that our dad and mom told us, or the president, or the media, or the propaganda put us in our head are the truth. But those are just concepts, ideas about reality, and are not what reality is. We have a lot of concepts of extreme right or left, and they are subject according to the law of pendulum. They pass away like fashion. They are processed in the mind and are vanities and of intellect. They remain in the surface. They are like part of our personality. Our personality is filled with vanity, with concepts, with imitation, with our ego. For example, I think the best of myself because my dad wanted me to be a lawyer, and so I became a lawyer because that was my idea of being successful. So I think of myself the best because I'm Colombian. I think of myself the best because I'm a woman, and that's my personality. I think that's my identity because is the physical appearance, the sex, the nationality with which I'm identified. But if I'm not identified with that superficial part of myself that is not my being, the wisdom of my being is something that is more profound. For example, in this existence, in this human existence, I am a woman, but in another human existence, I can come to this world as a man and be born in China, I don't know, and be part of a really, really rich family. For example, if in this life I was really poor, in another existence I can be really rich. So that's part of our personality, and that is going to pass away with time. With another existence, personality dies, and it's going to appear another different personality. So one cannot say that we are proud because of that. It's full of concepts. So we can see that to one psychological discipline, for example, another is opposed. Those concepts that were taught to us at school are really going to pass away with time. One theory is born and is going to be replaced by another theory when that one is obsolete. For example, geocentric theory of Ptolemy was obsolete when it came the heliocentric theory of Copernicus, and so on. There are gonna be many theories. All theories are going to be at some point obsolete and are going to be replaced by more accurate theories. But those theories are not reality, are just like fashion, are going to be replaced once and over again because we are not awakened. We are totally slept. We can perceive things partially with our minds and intellect. So we don't have the truth. We could achieve the truth if only we were willing to eliminate from us the 97% of bottled up conscience. It only allows us to see a little bit of the fraction of different perspectives of phenomena that of nature. but it cannot allow us to perceive the real. The real and the truth is not found in the pendulum, not among the swings of theories and beliefs. It's transcendental. You can see that to another psychological discipline, for example, to conductism, it's opposed constructivism. To communism, capitalism. To hedonism, asceticism. There are opposite sides of the same coin. So one can be stuck in one side and arguing with the other side, but that doesn't mean that you have the reason. If I am communist, I think I have the truth, and that capitalists are wrong, and I think of myself the best, but my reasonings are not the reality. I might be stuck in one side of the pendulum and in love with my theories, concepts, and ideas, but that's not the real. Our intellect is not the real. The real thing, it's inside. The truth is the unknown from instant to instant, from moment to moment. Truth is in the center of the pendulum, not at one extreme of right or left. We can have many concepts, ideas, and opinions, but we are only imprisoned in the illusions of our mind. Our mind only perceives black and white, as I said. It doesn't allow us to perceive the blend of colors and different fractions of light that allow us to see the truth. Truth is something that's explored in total silence of the mind. If we heal our own concepts, ideas, and opinions that come from our ego, I think this. My opinion is this, my concept is this, and we are so in love with ourselves, with our identity, our personality, because our ideas come from our personality. For example, if I live in Colombia, for example, is a truth for me. If I was born in a Catholic family, it's truth for me that the Catholic Church is the best. So that is an opinion, but the opinion is due to the fact that I was born in a Catholic family in this society. But if I was born in another place, my opinion would be totally different. So you can see that opinions, ideas, and concepts are variable according to the personality, the nationality, and all those things that are part of our physical human existence that is going to pass away with time, and our identity is going to dissolve in one moment. So the concept that the mind builds about the truth is never the truth. The ideas are not truth, are going to vary according to our historical moment. If I was born in the Middle Age, I would think that the king is God. So that's gonna be my idea. But if I was born in the modern times, my opinion would be, okay, science is like the God. Science knows it all. Science is absolutely good because it helps to heal people with a lot of technology. So it can be my opinion, but to that opinion it's opposed another different opinion. For example, another person can have the opinion that science is not good, science is absolutely evil because it has served to build nuclear weapons, biological weapons, atomic bombs, experimenting with animals, people suffering, crimes against against nature. So there are many concepts, opinions, and ideas according to what we have experienced, our cultural education, our nationality, our historical moment, but those facts are related according to our personality, and that's going to vary a lot. So we cannot find truth there, even though we are so in love with our identity and think we own the truth. That is not going to be it. So neither spiritual currents nor the materialistic opponents can lead us to the truth. For example, the false spirituality is looking to the outside to seek divinity, and many people have many concepts that Jesus is the divinity, Buddha is the divinity, so I'm going to think they are going to save me, and believing in what they did is going to save me, but I need to eliminate my ego. For example, what's the use if I think that I do everything Jesus said, and I say I'm really good. I always said, let him who's without sin cast the first stone, and I don't judge people, and I think I'm really perfect. But in the moment I see someone, I say, oh, look at how he's dressed. Oh, he's really tacky. Oh, he doesn't have money to purchase. So I'm saying a lot of calumny, talking trash about people. So what's the reality there? That I'm thinking I'm really good, I'm really perfect, but I'm not working on myself. I'm not eliminating my ego of criticism. So I might think that I have a concept of myself that I'm really good because I always say, let him who's the one without sin cast the first stone, and I think that I do that all the time. But the reality is that in the instant that someone comes, I'm talking trash. So that's a concept of myself that I think that I'm really good, but that's not the truth. The truth is I'm behaving according to my ego in the instant. If in the instant I was seeking the truth, I would be eliminating the ego that wants to calumniate me, that wants to destroy the other person. For example, if I wanted to talk about a colleague and said that she's really she doesn't know how to dress, she wants to get into a lot of polemic, just to be recognized, just to be proud of herself. So I'm going to eliminate the ego that is making me talk like that, and I'm going to rescue for myself the virtue of recognizing the value of every person. So if I was applying the truth, I would look into myself. Okay, I'm going to destroy publicly the opinion of that person. So I'm going to look into myself. Am I don't have the same that I'm talking about her inside myself. Oh yes, it turns out that I have the same psychological flaws that I'm criticizing inside myself. I'm like that. I want to be recognized all the time. So I'm going to explore myself and look that there have been many times that I wanted to call the attentions and argue and make a lot of polemic just to be recognized. So the truth comes when I judge myself and recognize that I have also darkness in myself. I'm not pure light. So as we were saying, the truth is something that must be experienced directly. That means not only thinking, saying a concept about reality, is that you're going to find what truth is about. Truth is something that it must be experienced as when we stick a finger into the fire and burn. For example, if someone tells you fire burns, you can either believe fire burns, okay, yes, fire burns because my mom told me so. But it's different if you put your finger in the fire and you experience that it burns. You are experiencing directly the truth, the reality. So you must get to the truth like that, not believing in the concept that someone told you, but experience directly what people are trying to show you. For example, someone tells you the elementals are the soul of plants. You can either say, no, I don't believe that, or you can either experience directly that in an astral projection. In an astral projection, you go to sleep and you wake up consciously in a dream and you ask the being of the plant, hey, directly I'm going to confirm if you are an elemental and you are the soul of this plant. You are going to experience that directly, consciously in the astral dimension. So it's different if you just believed or denied that what I told you without experiencing it. So the idea is to get to experience that. So also, if consciousness continues bottled up in the ego, it cannot experience reality. If we continue in one side of the pendulum, we cannot experience the truth. We need to self-observe ourselves and know that we're bottled up in ego, and therefore we're gonna be in one side of the pendulum all the time. We are going to be arguing and discussing with people around us and perceiving all reality according to the concepts of intellect if we continue bottled up in our ego. The one that is in love with the concept of life, like being successful, like having a lot of money, will argue with the other one that is thinking that life is just living the moment and just being in love with simple things, but not getting to the profound of that. So if we are bottled up in our own concepts of or ideas of reality, we're not going to get to the truth that will come only if we self-observe ourselves and our microcosmos. The truth comes from the elimination of the undesirable elements which together constitute ego, the myself, the I. For example, I think this is like that. No, I think it's not like that. We are arguing all the time in our mind, but only eliminating the error is going to come the truth, disintegrating our prejudices, the fears, passions, desires, fornication, intellectualism, and self-sufficiency of any kind. It's going to come the experience of the real. For example, if I have the prejudice that, for example, people from this culture are a lot of savages. Well, that is not the truth. That is a concept that I had because I was raised in another different culture. My fears, that I have certain fear for people of that other culture because they have traditions that are not according to my education. So that's also because you are in love with your own personality and don't want to see other people as valuable as yourself. So truth has nothing to do with what is said and was said, written or wasn't written, and comes only with the ego has died. We have 7 causal egos. We have envy, greed, gluttony, lust, pride. We have sloth, and well, 7 causal egos. Excuse me if one of them escapes to my mind right now, but these causal egos must die in order to awaken the 100% of conscience. The 100% of conscience, self-realized beings have achieved that, and they have mastered their own mind in order to be one with their own divinity. We have the divine wisdom of our being inside of us, and we are going to get in touch with that if we eliminate our ego. So here we can see the fragmented mind that we have, that we are so stuck in our concept that cannot see the other perspective of any other person. We remain only in one side of the pendulum. For example, here you see concept versus reality. Each person speaks from their perspective. He is in one side of the pendulum and this one is in the other side of the pendulum. What's reality then? For example, he is in this side of the pendulum and he's in this side of the pendulum. What is the concept then? What would you say then? Well, one cannot see the other side because every one of them is in one side of the pendulum and they don't know it. Socrates said that the problem of man was that he not only doesn't know, but he ignores that he ignores. So we don't know that we are in a side of the pendulum. We have to accept and recognize and be able to escape this pendulum logic, get out of the pendulum, see the whole panorama, and get to know, be conscious that we are in one side in order to escape the logic of the pendulum, of the bipolar concept of the mind. So truth has a different nature. Truth is not in one side of the pendulum. Truth is in the middle and is able to see both perspectives, is able to see all the perspectives. That is the polyvidence. Polyvidence is a faculty that 100% self-realized master is going to have. So while conscience remains bottled up in ego, it cannot experience reality, which is beyond the body, affections, and mind, because This one of them is so in love with thinking that he has the reason. I have the reason. No, I have the reason. So they are so in love with thinking that they are right, that they won. Sorry. So if they don't escape that love for themselves or that ego, they are not going to be able to escape this law of the pendulum thing, that is the functioning of our mind. We are going to face something that is concept, reality, and truth. We have a lot of mind games that confuse us. For example, what came first, the chicken or the egg? The fruit or the seed? Our mind plays with it, and we are hypnotized by the games of our mind, of our bipolar and intellectual mind. So if we dissolve our ego to cosmic dust, the conscious is liberated, and we are going to wake up and see the truth, which is not in the mental games that our mind, the maze of our mind, has us bottled up in that. Is it useful? Is it truth? And is it fair that I'm wasting my mental energy in thinking what came first? Well, you need to meditate and reflect on that. So the mind not only ignores, as I was saying, the Socrates statement, but also ignores that ignores. So the objective science of the being is beyond the tip of the iceberg. We can only see the superficial, but if we became profound, we would get to see the truth. Great cover, Jesus said, know the truth and it would set you free. But we are so in love with our chains. We want to be enslaved by our mind. We don't want to be the masters of our mind, but we want to be enslaved by the concepts that we have. So what is the purpose of knowing a lot of theories if we don't have we have never experienced the truth, the objective science of the being? There are many subjective theories, but those are going to pass away with time. The eternal and the real is beyond the time and the superficial. There is a tendency to overestimate our concepts. So let's take a look at the angel of death. The key of the laboratory of nature is held by the angel of death in his right hand. As we can see, we can escape the logic of the pendulum, achieving the sacred individuality with our being and becoming conscious of the darkness that we have inside in order that we can transform it into light. How are we gonna do that? Well, we have a part of our being that is the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother represents love, that is the supreme law that can transcend it all. Love is the only powerful law that can disintegrate ego. Our Divine Mother, that is also the force of the angel of death, is going to eliminate, disintegrate, and reduce to death, to cosmic dust, all our ego. So we are going to beg to our Divine Mother to eliminate this force of darkness that is making us so ignorant that we can only see reality with our cold intellect. So if in one moment I am thinking, oh, I must have a lot of money. Yes, that is the idea of life, being powerful, being successful, having a lot of property. So I'm seeing that I'm becoming really greedy. So I beg to my Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego of greed, and I'm going to see the real and truth right now. I'm going to remain in internal silence in that moment. I'm going to live the instant and get the truth out of the instant. That is living the present fully conscious. And if I'm conscious in this third dimension, I'm going to be conscious in the astral projection when I go to sleep at night. So if we keep enclosed in an intellectual logistic procedure, we're not going to escape the tendency to be in one pole of the pendulum. We need to be able to disintegrate those egos that are fragmenting our mind in two sides, and we need to reconcile the forces of darkness that have us separated in order to achieve the individuality and be fully conscious of what's happening inside us. So if we practice the psychological data, we are going to see that if we kill what is stalking us in one side of the pendulum, we are going to liberate ourselves. We are going to be free from that structures of our mind that are bottling us up in one side and not allowing to see the real thing. If the germ does not die, the plant is not born. If we don't eliminate all the darkness inside ourselves, it's not going to be born the light. The light is like the plant that is waiting inside the germ. The germ is the bottled up conscience. If we keep bottled up in our anger, we are not going to experience the birth of a virtue. The virtue can be patience. For example, if I am in line waiting to pay and receive, and all the time I am with anger, I am thinking, I hope this line moves faster. I'm going to pass and get in line before everyone, and I don't care if people are angry. I'm more angry waiting here. So I'm all the time wasting my mental energy, my emotional energy in unnecessary explosions of anger and impatience. But if I eliminate that germ of anger, the plant that is the virtue of patience is going to be born. So I need to beg to the Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego that is annoyed about waiting in line. So I eliminate that negative emotion, that negative thought, and I'm going to remain silent in the instant, and I'm going to be learning in the instant from nature. I'm going to be experiencing the truth, the inner silence. So it's going to be born a lot of virtues, faculties, and forces of my being by remaining in the instant and experiencing the truth inside of my being in that moment. So there are different graphics here to explain the different processes of what happens according to the law of pendulum. For example, the critical point is the conscience, the reconciliation of the two poles that allow us to contemplate both ends and transcend them. If we get to the point that we are able to see beyond the pendulum and see the both sides are not conscious, we are going to be aware of what's happening here and how our mind wants us to be divided. And when we transcend that division and become one with the force of silence, of inner silence in our being, We are going to learn to live the instant. The critical point is the instant. If we live the moment fully conscious and in inner silence, not allowing that the voices of our mind speak, we are going to achieve the conscience. So, for example, if here I am the pole of lust, and I am always fascinated by the prototype of beauty of men that I see. For example, I love the prototype of beauty of that man. I'm always desiring that man, and of course, it has to be the opposite part of the pendulum, that I'm always thinking that sex is something inappropriate, that sex is something that is really bad, that is really sinful, that I'm avoiding men. So I'm going to see that those are two extremes, and that if I'm here, I'm not conscious, and if I'm here, neither am conscious. The conscience comes from the reconciliation and living the instant, eliminating all the concepts that I have, good or bad, about sex, and just living sexuality consciously. That is, knowing that I have a sexual energy that allows me to create the superior existential bodies of my being. But in order to do that, I need a partner of the opposite sex that is willing to work with me with fidelity, chastity, and love. That is the purpose of sex, not lust, not pleasure, not thinking that is sinful, but allowing myself to create my spirit using my sexual energy to create my conscience. So I'm going to reconciliate and get to see with the intuition, the wisdom from my heart. I'm going to live the instant, and I'm going to be in inner silence, looking at those sides of the pendulum and eliminating them in order to hearing the voice of my being. The voice of conscience is something that I can hear with my heart. I can feel it, and I can see in the moment, and I can get to know when I am being and I am acting, thinking, and speaking according with what is just, with what is fair, useful, and truthful. And the conscience tells me, you're making a mistake. This will have consequences. So you know it. You know when you're acting correctly or incorrectly. The voice of your conscience is what tells you that when you're being unfair, when you're being hateful, when you're being resentful. The voice of your conscience tells you. So you need to hear it. The wise man is the one that is able to hear with the voice of the heart, with the ears of your heart, or speak with the voice of the heart. Okay, so here we have that in one side of the pendulum is our intellectualism. We can be really theoretical, be really cold, be really measured. In this side of the pendulum, we can be really passionate, we can be really instinctive, we can be moved by our reactions without reflecting. So the middle path will be not identifying with being so cold, so reflexive all the time, so wanting to control everything before it passes, and not so instinctive, not so reactive, not so passionate. Be able to balance that in order to recognize that conscience is not either in this side, neither in this side of the pendulum, but acting in the moment, in the instant, hearing the voice of your being. That is the faculty of intuition, and we are going to develop it with time when we practice the ongoing debt. Each time that you're walking in the street and something generates distraction, your mind, your emotions are distracted by something that pulls you out from the instant. For example, if you're a man and you see a woman that you think is really attractive, so the instinctive brain tells you, oh, you should go and search for her, you should talk to her, you should ask her phone number. And the intellectual brain says, okay, you should look in the opposite direction. Don't look at her. She's bad. Don't look at her and avoid her. So these are the two poles. Here you can see that there is the lust, and here you are being really guided through celibacy. You think that if someone for example, that you need to avoid the opposite sex because it is bad. So that is a celibacy concept. So you need to balance that. You need to practice the ongoing debt. Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego that see this woman with lust because she's not my couple. That is adultery. So Divine Mother, eliminate me this ego. And also here, if you think, don't look at her, look to the other side, avoid her. So Divine Mother, eliminate me that is this ego of celibacy that thinks it's bad to look at her and that feels guilt by looking at her. So you need to remain here. She is just another human being, no matter that she has one physical appearance that might trigger some instincts in me. I need to eliminate them, and I need to eliminate the other egos that feel guilty, and just be able to see beyond that, beyond the shapes and the forms, the superficial forms of that physical body, because it's just a physical body. I need to see the being that's beyond that physical body, because there is a being, and that is the essence of that person. Okay, that's it. That's the conference about the law of the pendulum. Being able to understand and to wake up the faculty of our heart that allow us to reconcile the opposite. Avoid polarizing in one side or the other side of the pendulum, and come to the understanding that the truth and the reality, that is the wisdom of our being, is only going to come when we are willing to renounce the concepts of our mind that remain as bottled up in our ego, in this side or the other side of the structures or the bipolar structures of mind that are an illusion. That's it. And the purpose of the conference is make it practical, be able to live the truth in every instant, and practice. Not that this conference is going to remain like a theory, but practice the meditation, the ongoing death, that is eliminating the ego in every instant in order to achieve concentration and intuition, and being able to hear the voice of our being, and being fully conscious in this physical world, in order to achieve the conscience and the perception of the superior dimensions of nature. That's it. Be able to practice this conference. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, you can write or get in touch. The purpose is to make it practical, and if you have a problem to make it practical, well, communicate with me, please, and write and ask what you need to practice it, to experience it.